5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thunderbirds are go.
Ah yes, Thunderbirds, a warm childhood memory. There isn't any show in existence that I hold a bigger sentimental value for than this one. Produced by the ingenious Jerry Anderson back in 1965, featuring incredibly detailed models and miniatures and lots of special effects done by the amazing Derek Meddings, who later went on to do the same for various Bond movies. It has an incredible soundtrack by the wonderful Barry Gray, and exciting storylines that are of course all centered around the iconic puppets that are all brought alive in such an inventive way, or as they call it, filmed in Super Mario Nation, which still sounds so awesome nowadays, even though it was really just a fancy way to say it featured marionette puppets. Yeah kids, you're watching a show in Super Mario Nation now. Shit just got real. It really is not that hard to spot the strings, and these puppets were pretty limited in their abilities, especially to walk in a realistic way. And then there was the obvious use of human hands in the close-up whenever these puppets would reach over to grab an object, which still is just hilarious, but it was all part of the many charms that still make the show stand out to me so much to this very day. There's no use of fancy CGI effects in this show. Instead, it was all handcrafted in such a wonderfully charming way. I'm still fascinated by all the creativity and fantasy that went into carefully producing this wonderful world back in the day. Jerry Anderson produced many other shows alike, such as Stingray and Captain Scarlet, but to me it has always been all about Thunderbirds. Back in the early 90s, they were broadcasting this show again in the Netherlands, and I first got exposed to the world of international rescue as a 3-year-old. And immediately I fell in love. I didn't even speak English yet, nor was I capable of reading subtitles, but I was hooked and I learned fast. My mom made it a point to record these episodes on VHS for me every week, and she only ever missed 2 episodes, Ricochet and Danger at Ocean Deep. I saw those 2 years later, but all the other 30 episodes she did catch, and I was able to watch them back whenever I wanted throughout my childhood. I would put them on regularly whenever I could. Heck, I could credit Thunderbirds for teaching me English way more than any other teacher could ever take credit for. I was exposed to this show years and years before I got into Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, Super Mario, and even before my biggest passion, James Bond. This was literally my first thing I really got into. I used to own all the toys, the big Thunderbird 2, the minifigures, and of course Tracy Island. So I felt the day had come to revisit this show and talk about it for a little bit on my channel, to see if other fans or even new fans are interested in me sharing my thoughts on it. For those who aren't familiar, Thunderbirds is a show about international rescue, a secret organization dedicated in helping people in distress that manage to get themselves in the most outrageously dangerous situations. When all odds are against these people surviving, they show up with their incredibly futuristic machines called the Thunderbirds to save the day. The charm of the show was that no one knew where they came from, and they have their secret hidden base on a tropical island in the South Pacific. There's Jeff Tracy, the billionaire and founder of International Rescue, and father to 5 sons who each pilot one of the Thunderbirds. There's the eldest son, and my personal favorite, Scott Tracy, who pilots the insanely fast Thunderbird 1 that always arrives first in the danger zone to assess the situation. Their second eldest, John, who's pretty much the sucker that's stuck in space for the majority of the show, manning Thunderbird 5, the satellite that picks up all the distress calls coming from Earth. There's Virgil, who pilots Thunderbird 2, the fan-favorite green heavy transporter plane that carries the various pods with all the different pod vehicles. There's Gordon, the prankster of the group, who takes control of Thunderbird 4, the submarine for underwater rescues. And then there is the youngest son, Ellen, who flies Thunderbird 3, the iconic red spaceship. There's also various other characters in the main cast, like the genius engineer Brains, who made all the machines, the sweet Tintin, who's daughter to the Tracy family's housekeeper and became almost like a sister to the family, but also kind of a love interest to Alan, and of course the iconic London agent, Lady Penelope, and her incredibly funny butler Parker, one of the best characters in the series. And who can forget their iconic pink Rolls Royce, the Fab 1, which totally is like the badass girlfriend of Bond's Aston Martin DB5. The show featured a total of 32 episodes, and there were 2 feature films made too. Also a live action film in 2004 that fans prefer to ignore, so let's do just that, shall we? Oh, and only a couple of years ago, a team remade 3 additional episodes in the same style to celebrate the 50-year anniversary, thanks to a Kickstarter project. There's also been a pretty cool reboot of the show back in 2015. It's a good mix of the classic formula as well as making it something fresh for modern audiences. But for now, I just want to delve back into the iconic pilot episode that started it all, back when it first aired on September 30th, 1965. Let's go and recap Thunderbirds. Our first exposure to Thunderbirds begins in a massive temple deep in a jungle. We get a lavishly decorated film set and you find yourself pretty much immediately intrigued by the air of mystery this pilot episode starts off with. This temple is home to the villain of the series, the Hood, though in none of his appearances he's ever referred to by that name, but it's commonly accepted among fandom that that is what he's called. If you have any doubts from the cute flowers on his shirt that this is the bad guy, then I guess the massive eyebrows and scary eyes that magically light up are a pretty good pointer too. The Hood starts ranting about international rescue. If only he knew their secrets, then he would be the wealthiest man in the world. Fortunately, his half-brother Kirano just happens to be the housekeeper of international rescue, and he has a statue of that half-brother in the middle of his temple, and through his psychic powers, which he has by the way, he can communicate with Kirano. Don't ask me how and why he has a statue of Kirano and who made it and stuff, he just has. Meanwhile, we are introduced to Jeff Tracy, the head of International Rescue, and Kirano, his housekeeper himself, who soon gets mentally tortured by the Hood. What a soothing way to start a kid show. The Hood demands to know whether International Rescue is ready to start operating, and Kirano, under great pressure of the mental powers, eventually reveals yes. Yes, they are ready to start operating, and thus the show kicks off. So we move to London Airport, where a brand new atomic aircraft by the name of the Fireflash is about to depart on its maiden voyage to Tokyo. And the Fireflash probably is the best guest vehicle in the entire series. Really one of the greatest things Derek Maddings ever designed. It's extremely memorable and iconic. Tintin, the daughter of Kirano, is about to board this magnificent aircraft. But meanwhile, the Hood, dressed in disguise, is already sabotaging it, planting a bright red bomb on the landing gear. And I have no clue how on earth this guy even managed to get this thing aboard. I mean, the frickin' thing is even labeled Auto Bomb Explosive Unit. So, you know, good job, airport security. But yeah, the Hood does this in an attempt to bring international rescue on the scene. And thus, the Fireflash takes off. And I know in Thunderbirds we're really just looking at models, but this stuff just looks great. I always found it pretty cool that the cockpit is all the way in the rear. Pretty inventive. The 2 pilots are also pretty amusing, immediately talking about the chicks aboard.
Well, I'm going up front to have a word with the passengers.
Passengers or passenger? I saw her too, she's kinda cute.
Meanwhile, the Hood casually calls the London Airport traffic tower to let them know like, hey, so I kinda planted a bomb on the landing gear of your new plane and now it can't land anymore without exploding and exposing lots of radiation. Fantastic plane, love that it flies 6 times the speed of sound and stuff. So anyway, good luck with that. And then he takes off his mask for no real reason, just so we as the audience are like, ah, so it's the Hood. Never would have guessed. So to make sure this is not just a prank call, the towers orders the Fireflash to fly back past the tower so that they can make an X-ray picture and are like, Auto Bomb Explosive Unit. Yeah, that seems like it's not supposed to be in there. We are also soon introduced to Thunderbird 5, International Rescue Satellite, which is operated by Space Monitor John Tracy, the unlucky guy of the Tracy Bros who spends most of the episodes stuck in space to receive the distress calls. He supposedly takes turns up there every month with his brother Alan, but really though, in the majority of the series it's always him stuck up there. It's commonly known that for whatever reason Jerry Anderson didn't like his character too much. Poor John. Anyway, John is listening along with the radio contact between Fireflash and London Tower and learns about the bomb. So he radios Tracy Island, International Rescue's headquarters in the South Pacific. And in Thunderbirds, the Tracy brothers can contact base through these portraits and have video calls. And to this very day I still find that so cool. It makes me want to have portraits of my own bros in my living room to communicate with them too. Of course, to Jeff, this is pretty shocking news, as they know Tintin is aboard the Fireflash too. And to raise the stakes even further, not only is the Fireflash unable to land, it can't stay in the air forever either, as the anti-radiation shield on the reactor needs servicing in 2 hours, or else all passengers and crew will be exposed to radiation. So a perfect recipe for disaster is set in place, and this seems like the perfect first mission for international rescue. So Jeff briefs the Tracy boys on their first assignment and is about to send them into action. This is by the way the only episode in which Alan has a different voice, because his voice actor Matt Zimmerman wasn't aboard yet apparently. So anyway, Scott is sent away to London first in Thunderbird 1, and we get the classic launch sequence, which really was one of the main reasons you watched this show as a kid. And honestly, it still gets you as excited as an adult. Seeing the swimming pool open up to reveal the secret hangar of Thunderbird 1 is just the coolest thing ever. I mean, which man wouldn't want to just stand against a painting in your living room that turns into a slide that takes you to your car in the morning before you go to work, right? Soon after Thunderbird 1 departs, Virgil is brought into action too to bring in International Rescue's most iconic vehicle, Thunderbird 2. The selection of whatever pod number they're gonna take along this time is always exciting. As a kid, I always tried to remember which pod number went with which pod vehicle, but soon found out you really can't make sense of it, because it's different every time. Except for Thunderbird 4 being in Pod 4, that's always the same. The launching of Thunderbird 2 appearing behind the rock and the palm trees being lowered, the stretch of road that turns into a ramp, it's all super iconic. Even if you never really watched Thunderbirds much, you probably still know about this part. Meanwhile in London they try all sorts of things to solve the situation with the bomb, like violently flying around to shake the bomb loose and getting a special target practice plane in front of the Fireflash to try and put a man inside to remove the bomb. The passengers are updated that there are some technical difficulties, but they don't seem that concerned. The bartender is still mixing cocktails, so as long as there's alcohol they seem absolutely fine. The guy who they are attempting to get aboard of the Fireflash, by the way, is named Maddox, a great nod to the legendary special effects designer. And I'm just gonna throw out a wild theory here. If you are an airline pilot and you have a bomb aboard, and they are attempting to put a man inside the wing who's risking his life to try and remove the bomb, it may be a good idea to close the hatch.
I'm going to try around the other side. He's fallen! At least, he made it.
Sure was a good try.
Yeah, a good try. You know, this may have been prevented if you just closed the hatch. But again, just a theory. I'm not an airline pilot. And no one seems to get the idea to try again and this time close the hatch though. And they're running out of other ideas and options. The clock is ticking. Fortunately for London, an unidentified aircraft approaches.
Aircraft approaching from the east, height 2,500 feet, speed 7.5 thousand miles per hour.
Have you gone crazy?
London Tower from Thunderbird 1, approaching London Airport, height 2,500 feet, airspeed 7.5 thousand miles per hour. We'll be touching down in 2 minutes.
I always absolutely adored Shane Rimmer's voice acting of Scott Tracy, and I think it's great that he shows up in 3 Bond movies too. Well, he did a voice in Live and Let Die as well, so technically he's in 4 Bond films. Anyway, Thunderbird 1 touches down at London Airport and Scott brings along this massive mobile control unit inside the tower. I always wondered how he ended up doing that. Like, does the airport personnel help to carry the heavy thing all the way up the tower? And furthermore, it doesn't seem to have much functions either, other than a radio, which the control tower itself seems to have plenty of anyway. It always seems like a bit of a redundant piece of equipment. But yeah, a lot of the time Scott's function is to arrive first in the danger zone, assess the situation and coordinate the rescue. Meanwhile, the Hood is dressed up as a cop to take pictures of Thunderbird 1, which is something completely illegal in the world of international rescue. They are a secret organization that must protect themselves, so no photos are ever to be taken. International rescue would never be able to function in this day and age with all the smartphones around. Fortunately, Thunderbird 1 is equipped with the automatic camera detector, so Scott is immediately alerted that someone is taking pictures, so he orders the tower personnel to do something about it. It's Thunderbird 2 that usually delivers the actual rescue gear, and here we get to witness one of the fantastic machine's functions in all its glory for the first time. I mean, every little boy on the planet that you show this show to will instantly fall in love with this thing. It really is absolutely fantastic. And one of the joys of watching Thunderbirds is to always guess what kind of vehicle will pop out of the pod this time. And in this pilot episode, Virgil takes out the elevator cars, 2 of which are radio controlled by him. With these tiny vehicles, they are attempting to let Fireflash land with the landing gear up in the hopes that the bomb doesn't explode. It really makes for one of the most tense and iconic scenes in the series, and it was guaranteed to put all of the kids on the edge of their seat. I mean, I'm sure the kids today have a great time watching SpongeBob or whatever, but this was just primetime television at its finest, and I honestly couldn't be more proud that I grew up watching this stuff. Even now as an adult, the combination of the tense music, the puppets with the sweat on their forehead, the ticking clock element, and the failed attempts of radio-controlled cars going crazy, it's all done so extremely well. Jerry Anderson is a master in making things tense. Fortunately, Virgil brought in a spare elevator car and the Fireflash tries again on the second approach. And this stuff still holds up so extremely well. It's amazing how thrilling these guys managed to make a scene with just a couple of models and puppets.
Fireflash, lift port wing. Lift port wing. Cut power.
It's all brought to a fantastic climax as Virgil's elevator car spirals out of control, leaving the nose of the Fireflash dragging along the runway, as the plane is finally brought to a stop and the bomb drops down and causes no harm. The day is saved and Virgil turns out to be okay, and International Rescue's first operation is brought to a successful ending with one of the best sequences in the series. Meanwhile, the Hood is still fleeing the scene with the pictures of Thunderbird 1 in the cop car. Fortunately, Scott has contacted another familiar trope of the show, International Rescue's London agent, Lady Penelope, and her trusty butler Parker. In this episode, we only are briefly exposed to the wonderful duo in their pink Rolls Royce, but we will sure see much more and deeper stories with them in later episodes. We get an amusing little scene in which the Fab 1 exposes its hidden machine gun and shoots the crap out of the Hood's car.
Milady?
Home, Parker.
My pictures. They are ruined. Someone will pay for this. International Rescue haven't heard the last of me.
So the episode comes to an end on Tracy Island, and somehow Tintin got back standing on the balcony with Alan. I always wondered how she got back, since he was aboard of the Fireflash this whole time. Did she fly back with Scott or Virgil or something? Who knows? Anyway, everybody is relaxing after a successful first rescue operation, and Brains alerts Jeff that the doctor is here. So Jeff introduces us to one of the amusing features of Tracy Island, Operation Cover-Up. Just to make sure outsiders don't know they are in fact International Rescue. The doctor assures Jeff that Carano is in good health and talks about the fantastic story of international rescue saving the day.
Well, how about that, Jeff? Some story, huh?
It sure is.
Oh, I sure would like to know who these people are. Because the one thing I'd like to do is shake 'em by the hand.
Well, thanks again, Doc. I guess that handshake was for all of us. Boys, I think we're in business.
In my opinion, Trapped in the Sky is a fantastic pilot episode that perfectly showcased what Thunderbirds is all about. A top secret organization dedicated to saving lives and pull off impossible rescues with their amazing machines. When all hope is lost, they are the only organization that are capable of saving the day. Especially in the case when people don't close the freaking hatch in their own rescue attempts. The basics of the format are demonstrated in such a stylish and exciting way immediately from the get-go. The whole story builds to this magnificent climax and throws a nail-biting rescue on your plate that is genuinely thrilling for both children, but also the adults, who I think can appreciate the great production value this show has. The episode introduces most of the characters in a basic way, as well as a couple of the Thunderbirds, but most of all, it also gets you pumped to see what else is in store in this world of international rescue. And if there's ever a day that I would have kids of my own, and they are curious of this great show that their dad grew up with, I would definitely show them this episode to get them interested. So there you have it, folks, a first recap of my favorite childhood show. For now, this is just an experiment to put some diversity into my content on the channel and see how this is received by you guys. Most of all, I would really like to hear your thoughts on this. Are you a fan of this show too, or have you never seen it? If the response and views to this series are any good, I would definitely consider continuing it. And yes, don't worry, plenty of Bond content is still coming up as always. This is just an addition to the channel. So, thanks a lot, guys. Are you a fan of my work and you just can't wait for other episodes or content to come up to the channel? Well, you can now join the DBF community on my Patreon page. Supporting my channel grants you access to all my latest videos 2 weeks before the regular viewers get to see it. Your name will also be included on the Supporter Hall of Fame, and you get to vote for the new content. And as a bonus for signing up, you will receive a personal thank you video from me, as well as these custom Blu-ray covers that I designed myself. These will all be received by email immediately, so you can pop them out of your printer and put them in empty Blu-ray covers to have your own DBF Blu-ray collection on your shelf. All support for giving back to my channel is appreciated immensely. You can find the link in the description and make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thanks a lot, guys.